learn about what is cross-cultural communication, what is cross-border relation, cross-border communications. Just get familiar with all the different ways people do things around the world. There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay, so some expats, when they're accept a position in Indonesia, some of them get the luxury of having a look-see visit, and so they have an idea about the situation either before they sign the contract or after they signed it as to what the lifestyle is going to be like. But then there's others that have just said yes to the relocation and they relocate immediately. So most of them will experience some type of culture shock. So how do you navigate that difference in lifestyle so that there's not too much recreating the lifestyle that they're coming from in Indonesia? How do you bridge that transition?
Theoretically, there are things you can do. There's a structure to this. You can do a pre-departure training, right? A pre-departure will help, and then the on-site training that will help, and then the re-entry training will help at the back end. So yes, you go through this cross-cultural training, pre-departure, on-site, and pre-departure. Re-entry. This will at least help you in at least knowing what to expect. So managing expectation through proper training, right? And again, no judgment, right? It's not that you have to go through this training because you're not sophisticated. It's just that to prepare you better, so how you can enter this different culture, and then how you can operate better in this environment, and then how you then can re-enter your original country. Some nowadays, because of budget or whatever reason, then they don't do proper pre-departure training, on-site training, and then re-entry training, thinking that everybody's the same, everybody's so international because we're global or internet, etc., etc. Not really, because real life and online life, that's two different things. And I seriously encourage people, before you go, then you do your pre-departure training. I don't care whatever format that comes, but just seek knowledge, basically, right? So pre-departure training, on-site training, and then a re-entry training. Just because I'm Indonesian, that doesn't mean I didn't have problem when I re-enter Indonesia. I did. I have a. So then you just learn it. There's nothing wrong with it.
But also important as to where the information is coming from, correct?
True.
Like
True.
Professionals that have a non-biased opinion, right. Hopefully.
Do your due diligence, right? Do your due diligence, and then just learn about what is cross-cultural communication, what is cross-border relation, cross-border communications. Just get familiar with all the different ways people do things around the world. There's nothing wrong with that.
Sure.
But I think also it depends really if this expat already has been moving around the world for 10 years, or is it your first position, right? Yeah. So I think also if you come from living 4 or 5 years in India and then you come here to Indonesia, I think it's quite an easy adaptation. Yeah, but then, I have friends or now friends that came from Germany for the first time. There it can be challenging. Yeah, and also in terms of how you picture your dream life here, right? So it's like a big garden and while you will figure out within 2-3 weeks, you cannot use your garden. Yeah, it's way too humid, way too hot, too many mosquitoes, right? So, but then you also have to figure, which I realize is if you go somewhere to holiday, you will like it. It's an adventure, yeah. And I feel for expats the same thing. Yeah, the first 6 months is kind of
still exciting.
Yes, I call that the adventure phase. And in the 7 months, often frustration will kick in. Yeah, because then really they realize, what you have to deal with now, right? So the traffic and everything else. But yeah, as an expat to come here to make it easy, yeah, definitely I would also say the training, yeah, and
How important do you think it is to find expat groups for support? So you've moved away from your family, you moved away from your friends, now you don't know anybody. How important is it for an expat to seek out support groups?
I think then also it really depends on the group itself, yeah, because I think some groups are better than others, but I think most important coming here you have to be open, yeah, like and yeah, especially with the locals. I mean, Indonesian, they are like actually really by heart so friendly, and they really want to help you, which can be like, it doesn't happen in your own country, right? If I go to Germany, the people are not like that, yeah. So I feel some expat might feel like they want something from me. That's why they approach me that way. Yeah? But I think it's a very common thing in Indonesia that they really, really actually are very welcoming and great hosts here in Indonesia. Yeah? So let's just be open to it, because the moment you close yourself, I think then it will become very difficult in Indonesia.
So, Pak Patrice, how do you think that professional cultural training will assist or fast track somebody moving into Indonesia? Like, how important do you think it is?
It's very important. It's very important for to manage expectation, as we to at least prepare yourself how to deal with differences. Because if you are not familiar with these differences and how to deal with differences, you get frustrated very fast, right? Jerome said, 6 months is adventure stage, exciting things, new things and all that, right? Comes month 7. Some people have that shorter period of time, 1 week, within weeks, they discover, oh my God, I will never live here. I cannot do this, but pre-departure training will help, right? Will let you know. A good pre-departure training will help you in establishing an understanding of what to expect. Expect this and that. Yeah, maybe there will be a variation here and there, but at least you get a general idea. And then you readings is good. Do a lot of readings and know your country you're going into, because that country may have a very heterogeneous society. Like Indonesia, there are so many tribes and natives and whatnot. Different island have different culture, different traditions. So know all that, and beforehand will help you communicate to your local counterpart. And then when you are on site, you seek commonalities with your fellow expatriates. Exchange ideas, ask them how they experience it. Again, openness to say, hey, I'm new here, I'm learning and how to live here, can you give me all this? It's nothing wrong with that. If people have afraid of being judged, like, oh, guys, you're not ready for this, you're not sophisticated, you're not an international traveler. Right. I think we should stop that. It's not healthy. Yeah. I think just it's okay. And then the guys that is here first, they should help the newcomers and say, hey, this is what we do, this is what this, and then and then when you want to go back and then understand, it's okay, now I have learned to do things differently, now I have to learn back how to do it before, and then learn again, re-entry. The openness to this training, to intercultural communications, intercultural differences, openness to all this is okay, is healthy. I think it's not degrading by any means.
Yep.
So I encourage people to really open on this.
But then also I think it really depends if you come as a single expat here, or if you come with a spouse or family, right? So I think as a single person it's much easier, because you have your colleagues, you have a lot of people that actually will give you advice. While if your spouse is alone at home, I think that training is even more important for the spouse than the expatriate himself.
So, Jerome, have you had colleagues that have come to Indonesia probably unprepared and struggled initially, but then through communication or through training or whatever, have actually become comfortable in Indonesia?
Challenges, I witness a lot. Getting comfortable is more or less, to be honest. Yeah. Like I had couples where, and especially spouses, they really had difficulties to adapt here.
Yeah.
To a point that they actually prefer to go back. Yeah, so the expat basically stayed behind here, yeah, and then finished his contract. But for some cases, I think, yeah, I mean, like, once you get actually create your circle of friends, new friends, right? So there, I think I witnessed a few that met us, or me, my wife, and in our circle.
Yeah.
And then actually it really, they gain really insider tips, basically, right? And they felt also not as alone as before. So I think that you get out and find friends. I think it's very important. And the clubs that you said, I mean, like they have also the Brücke or Ansa, and as a spouse, actually, that could be one way to reach out to like-minded people, basically, and get some connections.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think that's very important that
Yeah.
you create your own circle, basically.
Yeah. Looking at statistics, many times the reason for the posting to fail could in fact be the supporting spouse and not the working spouse.
Absolutely.
Patrice, can you speak a little bit about how important it is for the supporting spouse, having gone through probably identity crisis by moving to Indonesia, to seek help?
Very important. This is very often neglected, a neglected factor. But yes, that's why sometimes family, husband, wife, children, yeah, all those family issues can affect the performance
Of course.
of so it's very important to understand that. It's very important for the spouse to be able to get help in any way. It can be just someone that's been here a while befriended the spouse and give a few pointers, and then go to different places. I would encourage the spouse to go to these different places, not just to seek similarities, but also to seek differences and understand that difference is okay. It's just different. It's okay. And then, oh yeah, I want to be comfortable now. I'm going to go to the similarities. So if you get yourself used to that kind of approach, you will have a better cross-cultural communication experience.
Yep.
Therefore, you can enjoy it better. At home, the spouse may have more challenge than the husband or the wife at work.
Of course.
Because the help, you have to deal with, I mean, in Indonesia, at least, you have to deal with, maybe the gardener, maybe the driver, maybe the workers,
Yeah.
right? Doing this and that, and they have their own way of doing things around the house.
Yes.
And that is not familiar to you. They work better when they smoke cigarette, for example, and then they work better while they're drinking their coffee, right? And these are just differences, yes? And the spouse needs to understand this or equip with a tool to deal with this, so that the other spouse doesn't have to hear this complaint all day long, all week long.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is important, and it should be addressed, and it should be looked at, and it should be dealt with.
But even having all these helpers is nothing that they experienced before. I mean, they had a career, they had work, right? exactly, you come to a country and suddenly everything is done for you. You have a driver who get your groceries, you have a maid who do all the laundry for you, and suddenly, what are you going to do? You have no job, you have nothing to do.
The local might think that's a loser, but the expat might think that's a...
Well, I mean, when a expat overseas hears that you have staff now, you have a maid and a driver and a nanny and whatever, it sounds wonderful. But the issue is an identity crisis. So now what do? And I have to manage these people to do what I want them to do.
And sometimes they will try to make friends with them because it makes sense. They're like living with you together, but that's also not really working, right? So because in some cases, yes, if you really, truly want to be friends with them, but then you have to go all the way, basically.
Yeah.
But if not, then they're basically your helpers. Yeah?
And some of the hardest transitions that I've seen is where the working spouse is the wife and the supporting spouse is the husband. And then he's put into this situation, which can be extremely challenging because, again, it's a total different role for him while he's in Indonesia.
Yeah.
And the networking is more difficult for a gentleman than a lady in some cases.
Yeah, also by law, you cannot work or you cannot do anything, right? So I think that's where you really should have a group. And then, I mean, there are groups who do charity or anything, but then at least there's something where you can wrap your mind around compared to just waiting for your spouse to come home and to complain that you have nothing to do.
Right. Petrus, you touched on this a little bit about relocating. So now you've been overseas and now you're going home, and most people think it's going to be easy.
Absolutely. The biggest mistake ever.
Talk about what can happen.
Well, it's the same as, remember before you have your grade school, junior high, right? There are a few things that you do you've done that you don't want to be reminded of.
Yep.
People you try to avoid, right? And then you go somewhere else, right? And then so many years after, and then there is Facebook. And then and then there is a reason we avoid them. Well, Facebook tells you that you are friends with this now, right? And then you find out they're different. They're not so annoying anymore. They're actually nice people. All these people that you try to avoid all your life. What I'm trying to say is this: changes happen.
Yeah.
You like it or you don't like it, change will happen. And I believe in change is the only thing constant. So if you go overseas and you come back, you will find things different than when you left. Therefore, prepare yourself, equip yourself with tools, knowledge, right?
Yeah.
So that when you go in, you're not going to be a stranger in your own family, in your own backyard, in your own home, in your own country. That's, I personally believe, that's more dangerous than the other way.
Yeah.
Okay. Jerome, you've experienced this firsthand. You went back and were shocked at the situation.
In 23, basically for 4 months, I went back to Germany. And I mean, the first month was beautiful, yeah. But again, that's this adventure holiday phase. But for me, I really tried to experience Germany. I mean, I also relocated completely. I registered myself basically back to Germany, yeah, and I suffered. I really had a much bigger cultural shock going back to Germany than in 2009 when I came to Indonesia, actually. And it's something that where I afterwards realized is, I mean, what you said, yeah, my friends changed, yeah, like I think more to the negative some, yeah, and it's really some people that I have not seen since high school, yeah, but since I had time, I thought that I will reconnect to everybody. I would say 70% had absolutely no time. Yeah, they were like busy with their daily life routines, groceries, whatever it is, and they were really like caught up, stuck in their life, so they could not make it. But then I met some people where I realized it's like, yeah, we are completely, they still complain, you know, like, and I realized is if I would have done that again, if I would do that again, I would not go back to my old circle. I would actually look for something else. Yeah, I would maybe go to expats. Yeah, even it sounds weird. In Berlin, in my mother town, I would find expat meetings or meetups because I felt they are so much more positive towards the city, right?
Wow.
Because in all my friends like, why do you like Berlin? I say it's really nice city, and all the other expat friends that I have who've been to
here.
Yeah.
yes, but they love Berlin. Yeah, well, all my old circle they just say like Berlin is they don't like it. So that you should be aware, right? So if you go back to your old circle, that can happen. That to find something more positive.
The danger again is re-entry. The danger in re-entry, when you go out, you assume differences. I mean, that's it. Oh, they're different. That's fine. That's easy. That's more natural, right? Imagine assuming differences when you go back to your own home. That's hard.
But you don't. You don't assume differences. You think you're going to come back to exactly the same.
Yes. That's the danger, right? You don't assume. That's what I'm trying to say is that you cannot assume differences when you go into your own home, right?
Right.
So that's the danger. That's the danger when I talked about. Says it's even dangerous. The re-entry shock. If you do not handle it properly, it's dangerous. If it's important to assume differences when you leave, it is more so when you come back.
So you have a change in psyche, or you have a change in expectation, or what?
Yes.
Describe what happens.
Your reference in your mind is still from the past. Like T said, I knew them like this, but when I got there, they're not like that. Now I'm, where am I?
Yeah.
Right? So I think, again, communications, right? Assume difference, suspend judgment. Every time you go into a cultural situation, and it's when it's obvious, it's easy. You go to Indonesia, you assume difference. Okay, that's what you go to Canada, you go to your own house, and in your mind is, how am I going to assume difference? I know how to do this.
Right.
I know them. I know how to deal with this and that. Well, guess what? It's different. I mean, more so in nowadays, because I've seen a lot of people when they leave Europe or America to come here is before internet.
Yes.
Before everything online. And then they go back when everything is online. Boy, do we have a culture shock there. Okay? So yeah, that technology moves very fast. Yes. Therefore, technology will lead changes how the society works.
Yeah.
And if you do not expect differences, you will be surprised.
Jerome, how interested were your German friends about your life in Indonesia? When your conversation came back to Indonesia and you were referring to things that were happening here, how interested were they?
Yeah, I mean, it's how you said, the neighbor's grass is always greener, right? So it's, of course, everyone from Facebook pictures or from what they see in my life is, they envy it.
Glorious. You have a glorious life.
No, and also, I mean, like, yeah, especially with families. I mean, like, I have 3 kids. I could seriously not imagine how to raise them up in Germany without helpers. Yeah, I mean, it sounds spoiled, but I mean, that's, I think the biggest benefit of living here in Indonesia is the support that you actually get, especially if you want to work hard, right? So in Germany, it's a bit difficult, but
I find that my friends really cannot relate to what I'm sharing with them. Like the lifestyle is so different that there's very few common denominators.
yeah, also like, I mean, like now you see all those nomads working in Bali, right? And then I had friends in Berlin. They said, "Oh, you know what? I'm just saving up a bit of money, and I will do the same. Yeah? I want to basically live the simple life, and you know, like cheap prices, and work something online from Bali at the beach." Yeah. And the funny thing is, Berlin has so many lakes, right? So during the day, I would just go to a lake. I would put my hammock. I would sit there with my laptop, you know, like I would. And then to one of my close friends, I said, "You cannot even do that in Germany, right? So how do you expect this will work out in a different country, right?" So because it's really something that, yeah, you just do it basically. If you think too much about it, the outcome will be anyway completely different than you expected. Yeah, and if you can't do it there, it's most probably very hard to achieve something from here. Yeah, because
Definitely. Gentlemen, your insight on these topics have been really, really interesting. I really appreciate for your sharing. Jerome has been wonderful, and your insight, Petrus, is one perspective that we don't often see. So I really, really thank you for your insights that you've shared. So we're going to continue our conversation now, but more focus on what happens when an Indonesian has been overseas for a while and returning back. And so for this segment, we're being joined by Ibu Divina. Before we continue, please introduce yourself and where were you overseas and when did you come back?